Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another round of Basis Picks. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, any and all in between. It's appreciated. Shout out to everyone who checked out the episode yesterday. Shout out to everyone who's on the live stream on Wednesday. I've had a lot of fun this week thus far. There's been, some other stuff going on away from the channel, but that stuff has been a welcome distraction. So yeah, big ups to everyone. Thank you, all the super chats, all that other good stuff. Now, there is actually a Queensbury show on tonight, but having looked through it and the fact that I was initially gonna go, but it was oversubscribed, so I wasn't able to kind of get an accreditation. But I've looked through the card, the records and everything. Almost every fight on the card is A-side heavy, so there's no real point speaking about it. Not like obviously the Magnificent Seven last week. Yeah, this one isn't really worth going into. Big sort of, I'll look forward to seeing what Sam Noakes does, Royston Barney Smith and Ashley Bourne, but yeah, outside of those there's no huge interest, especially as Raven Chapman's no longer on the card. I'm gonna have to message her to find out what's going on with her, but I saw her doing a little presenting last week, little interviews. So yeah, maybe that's a new facet to her game that she's unlocked, but it was quite competent from what I saw. Anyway, with that being said, we're gonna go strictly to the Matchroom card. I don't remember there being any cards in America to speak about this week, so we're gonna keep it strictly to the Sheffield card, and I'm only gonna do the top 3 fights. So yeah, I can get into a little bit more depth and detail about those. But without further ado, let's get into the picks. So looking at this card, I don't know enough about Campbell Hatton's opponent to give a credible prediction or argument in that, but I know Campbell's like 14-0 and James Flint I think is 13-1-2, so that seems like it's a pretty good 50-50. So yeah, I'm not going to give a prediction because I've never seen Flint, but everyone knows I have no real high hopes for Campbell Hatton. So yeah, let's see if he can rise to the challenge and get his first title on his journey and kind of keep it moving. But Ishmael Davis against Troy Williamson. Now this is probably going to be my most intriguing fight of the night, and with that said, it's now very interesting the fact that Troy Williamson came in overweight. I think he came in 4 pounds over the 154 limit. I think they apparently said something like he couldn't get any extra weight off, so they're doing some kind of deal in the background, I suppose, to make sure that he doesn't rehydrate past a certain point to go into fight night. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how that sort of plays out, what kind of happens there. But looking at it from just a stylistic point of view, so you've got Troy Williamson, who is definitely a pressure fighter or a pressure ring fighter in this mode, and you've got Ishmael Davis, who's very much a boxer puncher. Now, the one thing about Ishmael is he's very fluid. His movement, when you look at it, like movement, foot placement, the way he throws his shots out, and his compactness, he's very very sort of technically sound and explosive. The one issue is though, he doesn't tend to work at a great pace, nor does he vary up the power of a lot of his shots. Like when he throws everything out, I'm not saying he throws all of his weight behind each shot, but there's never sort of any adjustment for his opponent to make. Like when he shoots one out, they know that the shot is looking to land and land hard, as opposed to maybe getting one that just sort of taps and just gets the attention to set up another shot, another a harder shot coming behind it, or even maybe a smaller, less tippy-tappy type combination step out, and then next time you step in, you brace for the hard shot. So when you don't vary up, sometimes your opponent gets used to the power, they get used to the feeling of the shots landing, and then they start to be able to take them better. And that also plays a heavy on his gas tank, because in the couple of fights that I have seen him, he does slow down, especially in those middle rounds, waiting or trying to break his opponent down, but working sort of more on the back foot as opposed to staying sort of in center range and looking to take opponents out. Now obviously that can be, sometimes some opponents are just harder than others to get through and break down, but it can also be because he's, you know, trying to either conserve some energy, or he's trying to reload the, you know, sort of reload and re-energize the battery. In those moments, those are the moments where Troy Williamson can definitely have his success, because Troy, while he's no great sort of technician, he is a person that does have a good engine, does have a good work rate, and will constantly stay on you, stay on your chest, or stay within the stay in the pocket, definitely, and he will look to throw shots. Now he's very crude in the way that he throws his shots. A lot of them, there are arcing shots. He doesn't really do a lot behind the jab. He sort of tries to rush in, more of an ambush style, and sort of mow his opponents over. As of late though, his punch resistance has looked very shaky. Now I think that's probably because he's been making 154 pounds for way too long, and if you look at his performance against Josh Kelly and his last of performance against Kevin Ajarko, even though obviously he never, you know, ended up getting put down or really badly hurt in either of those fights, you can see that the shots that are hitting him, they're having a different effect than they used to earlier on in the career. And that definitely could be a sign that 154 is just too difficult now, hence why he wasn't able to come in on weight today. So with all of that being said, I think that Ishmael Davis is definitely the technically better of the two. And if you was going to compare this to any other fight, you might, and I know this might be a little bit disrespectful to say, but let's look at it as the B-Tech version of Spence versus Crawford. So you've got, you know, Ishmael Davis, who would be Terence Crawford, who is the, you know, he's the slick operator, the switch hitter, you know, good punch placement, and knows how to sort of fight the fight at his pace and find, you know, sort of find the shots, find the angles of his opponent and nullify some of their best traits. And then you've got Troy Williamson, who's, you know, that really strong come forward type guy, wants to sit in the pocket, is going to try and sort of bang to the body and, you know, make it a doghouse fight on the inside or closer to the mid-range and inside than the opponent. I am favoring Ishmael Davis in this fight. If Troy had made the weight, I think I potentially would have favored Ishmael Davis for a late stoppage, but the fact that he didn't make the weight means that he's got a little bit left in the gas tank, and provided obviously they don't say that he has to only rehydrate 10 pounds by tomorrow, you know, to only be able to come in at sort of like 168 or something. I can see him coming into the ring maybe at like 172, 173, and if that's the case, I don't envision that his punch resistance will be majorly compromised. So it's also a 12 rounder, which is the first time Ishmael Davis has been in a 12 rounder. His last fight was at 8, and he's never been in a 10 before, so jumping from 8 to 12 is quite significant. But with that being said, I do think Ishmael Davis will get it. I think he's going to be very sharp early on. I think he's going to have to fight through some very hairy moments in the middle rounds, probably from round 5 to sort of 8 to 9, that region. But I do think that he will come on strong again towards the back end of the fight, sort of rounds 10, 11, 12, and just basically do enough to make sure that those, you know, sort of that those rounds get banked for himself and to win a unanimous decision. And I also expect him to win the first several rounds very, very dominantly, possibly even managing to drop Troy Williamson in one of the first sort of 3 to 4 rounds to kind of secure that dominant points win. But yeah, I think just because of the overall, the the fact he didn't come in at 154, that he won't be majorly depleted for this fight. He may, use his grit, gut and determination to see through the final bell. Now, moving up to the chief support on this is Sandy Ryan versus Terry Harper for the WBO welterweight championship. Now, looking at this fight, there's two ways I kind of look at it. You've got Sandy Ryan, who's got the vast boxing experience. She's, a much more decorated amateur, much more fight and combat experience in the ring, amateur and pro. Although as a pro she's only 8 fights in, but she was matched very, very tough from her fourth, I think it was her third or fourth fight on. So she's never really had sort of the bring-alongs and the gimme fights, so to speak, as a pro, whereas Terry Harper had much less of an amateur background, but has been, really well trained by Steffi Ball, really well tutored in sort of her ring craft, and as a pro, been in there with definitely the much harder competition. Natasha Jonas, Natasha Jonas, Alicia Baumgardner, Hannah Rankin was a good, a good opponent, especially for the 154 coming up to such a heavier weight. She's probably been in there with technically the better level of opposition thus far, but Sandy Ryan did have the Jessica McCaskill fight, where while Jessica is not a great boxer as such, very tough, rugged and durable, and it's a fight where you have to bite down on the gum shield and you have to kind of go through the fire to get to get to where you're going. Now, even though myself and I think the entire world knows that fight should have never been scored a draw, she still got the benefits of the fight at the end of it. Now, if we look at the styles, you've got Terry Harper is definitely the smaller of the two, which is funny because she was competing at a higher weight than Sandy Ryan. Sandy Ryan obviously is at 147 now, but she started her career at 140, whereas Terry started her career at 130, and obviously came up to, I think she had one fight at 135 and then kind of bypassed the rest of the division straight up to 154 just to get opportunities, similar to Natasha Jonas. But Sandy Ryan could have never made 130 if her life depended on it. She's just a much bigger woman naturally, and I think the speed advantage will definitely come on Terry Harper's side, and she's probably better at sticking to a game plan, which is how she's been able to sort of be very successful in quite a few of her fights moving before now. But when it comes to actual like raw boxing talent and ability and sort of grit, determination and heart, Sandy Ryan's got, I believe, more of that than Terry does. Now, if Sandy tries to just kind of be a pressure fighter, walk forward and try to walk Terry Harper down and work in that way, I think that she's gonna come unstuck. I think that Terry will be able to box and move. She'll be able to be on her bike a bit, be on the back foot, and because she's quicker, she'll be able to get in a quick flurry and get out of range. But I think Sandy Ryan's best bet is to actually try and box with her, because she's got the abilities to box with her and use her timing and the body shot. So she's gonna have to probably keep the right hand up high, and she's gonna have to stick to the body every time that Terry gets anywhere close to her. Bang to the ribs, bang to the solar plexus, like jab her to the chest, like whatever you do, just to take the wind out of her sails, to take the legs away, because I believe Sandy Ryan, being more comfortable at those higher weights, will be able to work at the pace a lot more and a lot better than Terry will, who, I've seen her look like the pace is getting to her in previous fights, especially, when she's carrying a lot more bulk than she used to. So I believe that's the strategies for both women. Ultimately, I do think purely because, again, grit and determination, and I believe Sandy Ryan is a harder puncher, and she's just got a certain mentality and a dog in her that I don't believe it will allow Terry to have things her way in this fight. I do see Sandy doing enough to take it. Potentially before, I was thinking she could potentially stop Terry, but I haven't seen the same signs of frailty from Terry that I saw at 130. She's looking a lot better sort of at the higher weights, even though she's been fighting, she's been grossly outsized by the majority of her opposition. I can't forget, obviously, she had the Cecilia Breakhouse fight in her last fight, and Cecilia was taking her to school in terms of timing her on entry, and she won a lot of those rounds very, very convincingly, hence why that fight was given a draw, when realistically I think there was an argument to say that Cecilia won that. But yeah, I do think that Sandy Ryan is going to do enough in this fight, and ultimately she's going to get a points decision. There could be a hairy moment. Maybe she might even be able to knock Terry Harper down mid to late rounds, but I do think Terry will see the final bell at the end of it. But if a stoppage comes, I wouldn't be surprised either, if I'm going to be totally honest. Now, moving on to the main event, you've got Dalton Smith against Jose Chon Zepeda. I've been kind of going back and forth on this fight over the last couple of days. I've heard other people's opinions on this fight. The one thing that I know more than anything else in this fight is Zepeda is the harder puncher out of the two of them. That's without question. He's also been, a prospect killer in the past. He's only, I could even add Terry Flanagan in there to somewhat of an extent when he fought him, but he's only ever really lost to the cream of the crop. But that being said, every time he has stepped up to that level, he has come a cropper. Dalton Smith is on his trajectory up there, but this is his first time anywhere near this level. And so yeah, sometimes it's good to have the those hard British fights so that you kind of get yourself hardened, but just boxing that one particular style can have an adverse effect, because you don't get used to fighting other styles and other types of opponents. This is also the first puncher I believe that Dalton Smith is going to be in the ring with, if we're talking about proper punchers. Look, Sam Maxwell was decent in terms of punch power, but he probably was past his best at that time. And Chun is a world-class level puncher, and even Richardson Hitchens said, I felt his power and decided safety was the best course here, so I'm not going to try and press the action for a knockout and then get caught myself. I'm going to box sensibly. Will Dalton Smith have the professionalism, the concentration to box to a game plan for 12 rounds? I'm not sure. I think if he gets a moment of a quote-unquote wobble, or he feels like he's got success against Zepeda, I think he's going to go for it. And I think that's where he could potentially get countered. So the danger is always going to be in, can he stay disciplined? Because if he stays disciplined, I believe that he's been well schooled enough that he will win the fight quite comfortably, and could possibly even get a late stoppage just by accumulation. But with him trying to go for that highlight reel KO, it's dangerous. And it's really, really conflicting me as to how I'm going to predict this fight. Okay, look, I'm going to be real. I'm expecting Dalton Smith to get through this fight on points. I'm going to trust that he can he can stick to the game plan, and he can be disciplined and measured and not get caught with silly shots trying to impress the crowd. But I do think he may have to come through a crisis to win this as well. He may get caught with a counter shot that maybe knocks him down, wobbles him quite badly. He has to survive, has to hold on. I can see that happening. But I can see him getting through the fight. And towards the later rounds, I can potentially see him stopping Zepeda in the later rounds. But conservatively, I'm going to go with the points win. So that's my prediction. Dalton Smith on points. I reckon it'll probably be unanimous as well. But I do think he's going to have to come through something. He's going to have to show some heart. He's going to have to prove that he's at that level, and that, he had his chin checked and he survived it. That's what I think. I could be totally wrong, but that's why we're here, to find out. Now, with that being said, please leave yours down below. I hope you've liked more of the technical aspects and breakdown I've given on this one. I haven't really done it in a while because there's always way too many fights to talk about. But yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed that and the video isn't too long. If it is, apologies. But yeah, let me know in the comments how you're feeling. Any other fights on the weekend, put them down there. I'll give you my quick summary, and sort of we can leave it at that. To let you know, next week we're going to do a live version of Basis Picks because there's 4 different cards on, and I don't want to sit down doing an edited video, nearly 40 minutes worth of time talking about probably 16 fights. So yeah, we'll do a live version. Everyone can get interactive. We can talk in the chat. I'll bring some other people on after I've given all my picks, and you can put yours down as well, and we can just have some fun with it. But for now, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, become a member if you're not already. And yeah, thank you. But that's Basis Picks locked.